Well, good afternoon again, Wheatley Baptist Church. Pastor Dave and Brian Walker, our faithful financier, among all kinds of other things, actually. Hey, we wanted to be very intentional with you, as kind of been our practice this last little while, to share with you, the stewardship of the church, and particularly what we know and kind of what we project, both. As far as finances go within the church. And so, I said to you at our update earlier this week, our Constitution is going to require us to have an annual meeting coming up here. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of our discussion here. But in that, we want to approve the 2021 budget. But as always, Brian, feels, and we do in general as council, I want to be really transparent about the financial state of the church. And so this is a good opportunity for us to do a few things. One, just spend a little bit of time talking about where 2020 ended up. And so, Brian's done a great job of preparing some information to share there. And then just give you some foresight into what the 2021 budget would be. And I'll just say one more thing before I turn this over to Brian. You'll notice in the email that we sent out to you, there was kind of two things there. Obviously, there was a link, so you've clicked on that and you're watching this video. But there was also an attachment there, and that attachment has a copy of the financial statements that Brian has prepared there that would show you both the where 2020 ended up, as well as a proposed 2021 budget. So our intention is to vote on that a little bit later this month, but we want you to have that in lots of time, as well as information, that Brian's going to add here as well in some different areas. So if you haven't done that yet, stop maybe right now, go print that thing off, and then come back here and press play and kind of resume watching along with us, because Brian's going to be speaking from that document. And certainly, if you don't take the opportunity to pause and do that right now, make sure you get that printed off after you've watched the video, because you can have that document to think about. So that was a lot of introduction, maybe, but important there. So Brian, thank you again for spending time with us and making sure things are clear. You do a great job of that.
I certainly want to make sure that people understand where we're at and
Sure.
the challenges that we face.
Sure.
I'm pleased to tell everyone that we did finish the year off better than I thought we would. Not where we had actually budgeted, because when we prepared the last year's budget, COVID wasn't even on the radar, but it had certainly impacted everything this year. But we have, I'm pleased to say that all of our members and adherents have gracefully adopted means of electronic giving. So we're still receiving regular checks for their gifts and offerings. And so, that's very heartening, that even when we're unable to worship in person together, that people still recognize their church and the needs of their church. So, like this past year, we actually finished up with a operating surplus of about $3,000, which was really about what we had projected last year. But gifts and offerings were off by about $20,000, maybe a little more than what we had budgeted for. But because the church was primarily shut down for much of the year, we were able to keep expenses under control. And that's why, even though gifts and offerings came in at around $90,000, we were able to control expenses to the level that that was sufficient to cover our operating stuff. Now, one thing you will notice on that document that's been posted on with the link is that during the year, once again, we were very much blessed. We had two very substantial estate bequests received, and one of those has some conditions attached to it in regards to the use of those funds, and that they be used for outreach activities. And fortunately, that condition is something that we can really fits in well with our plans
Sure does.
for the coming year, because and years beyond that as well, in that so much of our activities are going to be focused on outreach to you, our members, but to those who have been following the church messages online. And as Dave mentioned in his update this week, online services are going to continue to be streamed live every week, even when we are back in person. So, these are all outreach activities, which, while there is a restriction on those estate funds, it really fits well within our plans. So we're not that concerned about that, but we did want you to be aware that it's technically not something that we can draw from to pay the gas bill or the hydro bill. It is for outreach activities. So council will be very much monitoring that and ensuring that those funds are used in the manner that they were requested by the member who passed away. For 2021, again, it was a tough budget to pull together, because we're trying to be realistic. We want to be realistic in what we can, as we sit here today, what we know. We're still not sure when this COVID thing is going to be behind us. But you'll notice in the budget proposals that we're projecting a shortfall of about $28,000, almost $29,000 for 2021. And that's based on the fact that we are projecting gifts and offerings to remain at the level they were for 2020. We're hopeful that we will be in a position to have open services again, where people who may have been watching us online will want to start attending and participating in the activities of the church. But we have not really built anything into the budget to allow for increased gifts and offerings. They will be blessed, obviously, if they come through. But the one thing I do want to point out that, we're talking a shortfall of almost $30,000. But we started this year with excess or surplus operating funds of about $75,000. So even if all of these budget numbers fall into place where we've projected them, we'll still have a $45,000 surplus at the end of the year. And, if things pan out the way we hope, we'll see a much better picture of that. The one exceptional item, I guess, that I do want to bring up, you'll recall last year we asked for approval for $20,000 of capital funds to redo the carpeting and painting in the church. And the bigger part of the project was the replacement of the lighting to LED efficient lighting. Out of that $20,000, we spent just over $17,000 last year. And this year we're asking for an additional $7,000 on top of that 17 to finish the project. We have all the light fixtures purchased and they're on site here. We're just waiting now for installation of those. So, and we just found out we have to replace the range in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I do want to point out that that's being put to very good use by the ones running the food bank at the church now. So that, I'm certainly hopeful that we're going to see a much better position at the end of the year, besides a $30,000 shortfall. But again, we want to be realistic, and we need your prayers and your support to help us meet those goals. And your prayers will hopefully help us exceed those goals.
Yeah, God willing.
So I've never had anybody ask me, but I do want to reiterate that as you go through those financial statements and the budget numbers or anything else, please don't hesitate to call me. I'm more than happy to try and answer your questions or let you know where some of these numbers came from. Please don't hesitate to contact me. I would rather you have the information you need in order to vote on that budget, because you will be asked to vote to approve the budget at our annual meeting. Now, tentatively right now, council has set a date of May the 28th, March 28th, to hold that annual meeting in person here at the church. But again, if the COVID restrictions and whatnot don't permit that, then we'll have to look at other means to conduct those votes. But there are other matters that are going to be dealt with at the annual meeting, and I'm sure Dave will be speaking to those in updates in the coming weeks. But as far as the financial part of it goes, please, if you have any questions, give me a call. We actually still have a landline, so we're still in a phone book if you can find one. But anytime, please give me a call.
Great. Well, Brian, thank you. Not just for this update, but you have a servant's heart that is certainly demonstrated in all that you do here. But you also you communicate so well that when we're thinking about how to be stewards, where to give, how to give. You've been so helpful in that this year in navigating a pandemic, and a lot of I think a lot of what you shared from us is the Lord's doing and obedience for us as members of this church, but it's also because of the infrastructure that you had in place and some of the new tools that you've brought on.
You've certainly been a big help in that regard, with regards to a lot of the technical side of it, because while I have some understanding, I certainly can't.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes,
and
it certainly has been this past year.
Yeah, right. So, folks, I'll just reiterate one thing Brian mentioned. So we are planning an in-person worship service for March the 21st and March the 28th, and the March 28th service would be followed by the annual meeting that Brian spoke about. I will bring you some more information specific to some other topics that we're going to cover at that annual meeting in next week's update. And just to say, if the unfolding of orange and yellow and green restriction zones, if that doesn't go according to how we're thinking that's going to play out, then we may have to push the March 21st session back to March the 28th. So we'll communicate a lot about that as we're watching this unfold. But just to give you as much advance notice as we can, today we're planning for an in-person worship service on March the 21st, and then that would kind of carry us on there with our our annual meeting being held on March the 28th. So thanks very much for your graciousness and your generosity during this time. We're so looking forward to being back together as a community. I think we've all felt a strong sense of community even through this, but it's just not the same when we're not together. So really looking forward to that, as you hear a lot of us say every week. Blessings. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you on Sunday. Bye now.
Thank you.